Ekwensu and the Greedy Trader. Let me tell you a story from the heart of West Africa, from the land of the Igbo people, a tale about a clever spirit named Ekwensu and two traders whose choices teach us something important about honesty and wisdom. This story comes from a time long ago, before cities grew tall and roads were wide, when people lived close to the earth and the spirits were said to walk among them. Now, Ekwensu is not your everyday spirit. In Igbo tradition, Ekwensu is known as a trickster, one who delights in cleverness and tests the character of those he meets. He's not evil, but he's not straightforward either. He's like that friend who always has a riddle or a challenge, pushing people to think twice before they act. Our story begins with two traders, Okeke and Namdi. Both were well known in their village for trading grains and other goods. Okeke was honest and fair. He believed a good trade was one where both sides left happy. Namdi, on the other hand, was known for his greed. He wanted to get rich quickly, often at the expense of others. One dry season, when the harvest had been poor and food was scarce, Ekwensu appeared in the market. He carried a sack, but not just any sack. This was a sack of endless grain. It looked ordinary on the outside, but inside it never ran out. Ekwensu, with a sly smile, offered to sell this magical sack to any trader brave or clever enough to buy it. First, Namdi approached. He saw the sack and immediately thought about how much he could sell the grain for. But instead of asking questions or thinking about fairness, he tried to trick Ekwensu by offering less money than the sack was worth and secretly planning to sell the grain to many buyers. Ekwensu agreed, but with a warning: this grain will fill your sack, but only for as long as your heart is honest. Next came Okeke. He listened carefully to Ekwensu's words and asked thoughtful questions. If this grain never ends, how do I share it without losing? Okeke wanted to understand how to use this gift wisely, not just for himself, but for his community. Ekwensu smiled and said, the grain will feed your neighbors and fill your sacks, but only if you trade fairly and share what you have. Greed will shrink the grain, honesty will grow it. Days passed. Namdi tried to hoard the grain, hiding it and selling it quickly at high prices. But to his surprise, the sack began to feel lighter. Grain spilled out, but never enough to fill his customers' needs. His greed had made the endless grain shrink, and soon he found himself with an empty sack and no friends. Meanwhile, Okeke shared his grain freely, giving some to neighbors and trading fairly. His sack stayed full, and the grain multiplied. Soon, his village was well fed, even during the dry season. People came from far and wide to trade with Okeke, not just because he had endless grain, but because he was honest and kind. This story reminds us that sometimes it's easy to be tempted by quick gains or to try to outsmart others. But true abundance comes from fairness, honesty, and sharing. Like Okeke, when we deal with others openly and with respect, we build trust and create lasting prosperity. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a garden that never stops growing fruit. You could keep all the fruit to yourself, or you could share it with your friends and neighbors. If you share fairly, the garden grows even more. But if you try to cheat or take more than your share, the garden might stop producing. So next time you face a decision, whether it's sharing, trading, or just dealing with others, remember Ekwensu saying endless grain and ask yourself, am I being fair? Am I honest? Because in the end, that's the real magic that brings true abundance. And that's the story of Ekwensu and the Greedy Trader. Thanks for listening, and may your own sacks always be full.